Hello, Sue Rose Minahan, and I'm with Liz Muschett of the Moonbeam team. And Liz is also with A Light Path or lizmuschett.com, and you can find that at Talk Cosmos. We have a Moonbeam team coming up on the 28th, and tonight is Now Chat with the full moon for that event, which will be on the 28th tomorrow. So, hi, Liz. Always
Hi,
glad.
Sue. It's great to be here. We get to celebrate the Libra full moon. How exciting. And that happens at 8 degrees. And so that's really cool. And I'm going to share my screen and get started.
Okay, this is great.
So we have the Libra full moon, and on the East Coast, it happens at 2:48 p.m. And on the West Coast, it happens at 11:48 a.m. So here's the chart for Washington, D.C. The sun and moon are highlighted with the yellow. The moon is in the third house of communication, and the sun is in the ninth house of philosophy and foreign lands. To me, I feel like it's just like encompasses the world. To me, like that's kind of the world house. And the luminaries are making trines to the north and south nodes. So the moon here in the third house, and this is all in blue, is making a trine, which is a 120-degree aspect to the south node in Mars. Then the sun is making a trine to the south node in Sagittarius and the north nodes in Gemini. So also the sun is sextiling the north node in Mars and Gemini, and the moon is sextiling the south node. So the luminaries are very involved this time with the nodes of the moon, and it makes a mystical rectangle. And mystical rectangles are often rare, but it's really exciting that we have one right now. To me, it brings a harmonious and constructive point to express and release any tension. And it opens us up to solve things. It opens us up to our gifts that we have. So I had a lot of fires to put out. So that was kind of like this Aries energy, and it like kind of, it's like, how am I going to resolve these? And it didn't take me too long, and I resolved them, and then I went out and worked in the yard. So that's kind of my story of how that all worked out. Because I could have panicked, but I didn't. So
I can kind of second that. That's very good. It was an active time and felt great to check them off my list. And because it cleared the past too, with some of these fires, as you said, to put out. Thank you.
right. And then it's really interesting that around the sun, Chiron, and Venus are all at 8 degrees. So they're, pretty tightly packed together. So the sun shining the light in the ninth house of the West Coast chart with Chiron and Venus, have compassion for self. This chart is really talking Aries energy about self, and Libra energy, where the moon is, about others. So to me, it has a big relational quality to this astrological event chart. Venus is there in Aries, Mars is in Gemini. So they're communicating, and with the trine and sextile, there's like opportunities to improve on communication. There's opportunities to make sure that we have clear communication. Like the fires I put out was people just didn't have all the information. So that's, once we gathered all the information, it was like, okay, this is not as big as we thought it might be. It's like, okay, we can deal with this.
Wonderful. You saw result. Yes, I love this resolution of energies for
Yes,
harmony.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the West Coast, I wanted to show the chart that the sun and moon are in the fourth and 10th house. So the fourth house is foundation, home, family, and the 10th house is how we're seen in career. So it just shifts, but that sun is at the top of the chart and the moon's at the bottom of the chart, basically in both charts for the West Coast and the East Coast. I like to work with the lunar gestation cycle. In Pessin's book, that's what he calls it. But in Solar Fire and the astrological software that I use, and I know you do too, Sue, they call it the lunar phase family. And this particular phase, we're at the full moon, which I highlighted in yellow. But I wanted to go back to the new phase started on September 28th of 2019 at 5 degrees of Libra. And this cycle, the lunar gestation cycle takes 3 years to go through and complete, but this is where we're at in this cycle. And then they always begin again every new moon, we start a new one. So they overlap. So
there's, go ahead. No, I was just saying there's connective themes, and it looks like you're going to show it. Go ahead.
Yes. So I ran the chart for that new moon in September of 2019. And this is Washington, D.C. And the sun and moon are together, conjoined or conjunct in the 9th house. So today for the full moon, we have the sun in the 9th house also. So it's like a kind of a repeat theme. And it's opposite Chiron, the mentor, the wounded healer. So opportunities to, address our wounds, and I think since it's an Aries, to take some responsibility of how we heal them and work with them. It's not like, oh, it's somebody else's responsibility. I have responsibility also. And again, relationship. It's like repeating. So I find that that's very interesting. And now today in the full moon chart, Chiron is with the sun and Venus. So it's interesting that when this cycle started, Chiron was prominent, and at the full moon phase, Chiron's prominent again.
And more of an awareness, I would say. We were aware of this, but now we're integrating it, yes? Because it is conjunct. Yep. So there's been motion in the last year and a half.
And then for the West Coast, here's the chart. And again, it's the 4th and 10th house, the sun and moon opposite Chiron on that new moon.
Which is,
so it's like on the West Coast of the United States, whether it's Seattle.
Oh, yes. The same chart, but in different locations. Yeah, so a little different emphasis of how it projects in our life.
And then I use the yearly lunar phase. So we're at the full moon phase, and the new moon phase started in October of 2020 at 23 degrees Libra. And in this chart, the sun and moon are together in the 8th house. And again, this is the East Coast chart for Washington, D.C. And so the 8th house is about transformation and letting go and those types of things. And it's square to Pluto and Saturn in the 12th house. So Saturn and Pluto in the 12th house can be things beneath the surface, hidden things, maybe just not, the whole story hasn't evolved yet. There's like maybe behind the scenes work happening. So it's an opportunity to, squares are about friction, and it's like some adjustment needs to take place. So even looking back 1 year ago, life is quite different for pretty much everybody in the whole world. So perhaps at your house isn't functional for what you need now because maybe your situation has changed. So a lot of people are moving. It could be other things, but what adjustments need to be made? It could be old laws, old rules. There's been so much change in 1 year, let alone 5, 10, 30 years, 50 years. I mean, we've all grown, and there's been a tremendous amount of change in the world.
Yes.
And then on the West Coast, and I ran it for Seattle, the sun and moon and the new moon were in the 10th house square to the first house. So it's, still repeating some relational energy too, because first house is about self. Maybe what have you not brought up to be released?
Well, I will say in this case that on the West Coast at least, or that the fact of COVID, that the institutions for people, assisted living, that now finally there's been admittance. I have a stepfather that suddenly has had visitors. So it's really pretty exciting. I think we're just about our 10 minutes, Liz. But
Yeah,
what a
thank you.
wonderful review. Thank you so much. Very illuminating. And Liz is on the Moonbeam team, and on the 28th, we're going to talk about with four of us about this full moon on that date. So thank you so much. You can go to Liz Muschett, and blessings to everybody and lots of compassion. I love that. We'll have compassion. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.